strip pharmaceutical companies of the special liability exemptions that apply to vaccine manufacturers, because that's crony capitalism and it's unjust, and where there has been injury, there needs to be justice. The only candidate who can tell you that I will pardon every peaceful January 6th protester on my first day in office because it's the right thing to do for this country. The only candidate who could tell you that Ronna McDaniel, the failed chairwoman of the RNC, needs to resign after 5 failed years of leadership, because we need accountability in our own party if we can ever have a chance of bringing it to Washington, D.C. And I want to ask, why am I the only candidate who can say these things? It's because our politics has become corrupt, actually. Anymore, it's the same issue that Steve talked about. Every politician is just dancing to the tune of their biggest donor. It's like a fact. The sun rises in the east, the sets in the west. Every politician is dancing to the tune of their biggest donor. And in my case, that biggest donor is me. I don't report to them. I report to you, the citizens of this country. I'd rather speak the truth and lose some election than to win by playing some fake game of political snakes and ladders. But the bet we're making in this campaign is that that will be the winning strategy. That's not up to me. That's up to all of you. So I'm here to tell you who we are and what we stand for. I say we because we're doing this as a family. It's your job to do what needs to be done on January 15th when every one of your voices and votes in that Iowa caucus, it counts as the equivalent of 1 million people in shaping who and selecting who the next president is. So I'll tell you a little bit about why I'm in this, about what we're going to do for this country, and then I want to open this up and we can have a conversation. And I'm grateful you guys also braved the snow to be here. Every other candidate, I think, canceled their events, including some in Northwest Iowa today. My view is if you can't face the snow, you're not ready for Xi Jinping. So we're going to show up and stand by our commitments. My parents came to this country 40 years ago with no money, in search of opportunity. In a single generation, I have gone on to found multiple successful companies, multi-billion-dollar companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apurva, who is a throat surgeon, works at the cancer hospital at Ohio State, saving lives of cancer survivors. She's with our 2 sons tonight in Des Moines. They stayed there. One's 3.5 years old, one's 1.5 years old, following our faith in God. I'm worried that American dream isn't going to exist for our kids and their generation unless we all step up and actually do something about it. And I decided to enter this race. I'm a businessman. I'm not a politician. But I decided I had a duty to be in this race and a duty to lead this country when I saw that red wave that never came. You guys remember that? A little over a year ago? Why didn't we have that? They blame Donald Trump. They'll blame abortion. No, it's deeper than that. Our Republican Party, we have grown lazy, actually. I don't just mean lazy in the get out the vote operation sense of lazy. I mean lazy in a deeper sense of defining who we are and what we even stand for. The left is good at this, actually. Say what you will. They'll give you a vision. It's the wrong vision. But they'll give you a vision of race, gender, sexuality, climate. And we're sitting here criticizing that vision when we should be offering an alternative vision of our own. What do we actually stand for? What does it mean to be a Republican in the year 2024? I'll rephrase that. What does it mean to be an American in the year 2024? That's the question we need to answer. And to me, it means we believe in the ideals of 1776. Ideals like merit and the pursuit of excellence, that you get ahead in this country, not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. That's why I've said we will end affirmative action and racial group quota systems in every area of American life. We'll end the woke indoctrination in our U.S. military that I'll put an end to as our commander-in-chief, restore merit both in the government and every area of American life. That's how we revive who we are. It means we believe in the rule of law. I say this as the kid of legal immigrants to this country. That means your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. And that's why I've said I will use our own military to secure our own southern border and our northern border too. That's what it means to stand for the rule of law in the United States of America. And we'll put an end to birthright citizenship for the kids of illegals, and we will deport anybody who is in this country illegally, returning them to their country of origin. That's what it means to stand for the rule of law in the United States of America. It means the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government, not the shadow government and the deep state that's running the show today. If there's one thing I get done as your next president, it will be to shut down that deep state. You want to actually drain the swamp this time, like actually get it done, drain the swamp? Here's how I'm going to do it without apology. Fire 75% of the federal bureaucrats starting on day one. That's how you drain the swamp. For government agencies that should not exist, FBI, ATF, CDC, U.S. Department of Education. We're not just going to reform them anymore. That doesn't work. We're going to get in there and to shut them down. That's how you revive the integrity of a constitutional republic. I'm not going to use last year's budget as the baseline, which is based on the prior year's budget, which is based on the budget from the year before that. No. We're going to start with zero as the baseline and ask what's actually necessary. Zero-based budgeting. That's how I've run my businesses. That's how countless CEOs across this country run their businesses. That's how I'm going to run the federal government in the United States. That's how we fight the national debt crisis that we're in. So these kids don't grow up, and our kids don't grow up with $200,000 of somebody else's debt on their shoulders that they didn't sign up for. If I can't work for you for more than 8 years as your next president, which is a good thing, neither should any of those federal bureaucrats reporting into me either. 8-year term limits for the bureaucracy instead of civil service protections. This is how you drain the swamp. This isn't controversial. It shouldn't be. This is common sense. Now, to get this in a lasting way in this country, yes, we do need elections we can trust and believe in. You're not supposed to talk about that one, but it's what we need. And in my first year, we're finally going to enact minimal federal standards for federal elections. Single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday with paper ballots, government-issued ID to match the voter file, and English as the sole language that appears on a ballot. That's not too much to ask. These aren't black ideas or white ideas. These aren't even really Democrat ideas or Republican ideas. They shouldn't be. These are American ideals that we fought a revolution to secure in this country. And I believe deep in my heart that those ideals still exist. I'm running for president to revive them. It's the creed on the back of our coins, e pluribus unum. It means from many, one. That's what we've lost in this country. I'm 38 years old. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. We grew up into a generation where we were taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways that we are really the same as Americans, bound by that common set of ideals. And here's how we're going to get it back. It's going to be by all of us, not just me, all of us starting to speak the truth in the open again. Say in public what you will say in private at the dinner table. Say it with a spine. Say it with conviction. Say it with respect. But part of respect is that you respect your neighbor enough to tell him what you actually think. That's what this campaign is about. Speaking the truth, not just to the other side, but to our own side when necessary. Speaking the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it is hard. God is real. There are two genders. Never thought I'd have to say that one. Fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity. Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border. Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family isn't a bad word. It's the best known form of governance known to mankind. Capitalism isn't something we should apologize for. It lifts us up from poverty Not crony capitalism, but the real thing. There's 3 branches of government in the United States, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest and greatest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is the truth. Thank you. We fight for the truth. We stand up for the truth. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what reunited us after the Civil War. That is what won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That is what still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus, not China, is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about. And that is what we will revive to save this great country. Thank you for coming out this evening, guys. God bless you and your families, and may God bless our United States of America. We are not going to stop until we get this job done. Let's open this up. I want to have a conversation. Give me the hard ones. I'm sitting across the table from Xi Jinping in 18 months. I can handle the hard ones from our own voters. So let's open this up, guys, and thanks again for coming out. You have one, sir?
As Christians, we believe that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And we pray for our leaders that they will have both the fear of the Lord and look to Him for wisdom.
Yes.
Do you have the fear of the Lord?
Yes.
Do you fear God, and why?
I do. I fear God because I know that I'm not Him. And He puts us here for a purpose. And so I'll tell you the heart of my faith, just to share with everybody my own faith background. I'm Hindu, which is different than this traditional faith background of most people who have run for U.S. president. If you study our history enough, Thomas Jefferson was a deist. He was not a traditional Christian, but most people who have run for U.S. president have been Christian. But we share the same value set in common. I went to Christian school, St. Xavier High School, and so I can say this with confidence. Here's the heart of my faith. God puts us here for a purpose. There's one true God, and He puts us here for a reason. God works through us. It's not being done by us. It is being done through us. We're His instruments. God works through us in different ways, but we're still equal because God resides in each of us, because we're equal in the eyes of God. That's the heart of my faith. I had what you would call not a traditional background, but a very traditional upbringing. My parents instilled my faith in me at a young age. I left it probably in my late teens, early 20s, came back to it as an adult, but my parents taught us family's the foundation. Marriage is sacred. They taught us it's between a man and a woman, that the good things in life involve a sacrifice. Adultery is wrong. Abstinence before marriage is the way to go. Divorce isn't just some option you pick off a menu when things go a little wrong. It's not just about this life. It's about eternal life. And yes, what you do in this life will determine where you go in your eternal life. So that's what puts the fear of God in me. Now, just to be candid, to state the obvious, I'm not going to be the best person to spread Christianity through this country. I don't think that's the job of the U.S. president. But I am going to stand for the same Judeo-Christian values that this country was founded on. I read the 10 Commandments for the first time when I was 14 years old at St. Xavier High School. What do they say? There's one true God. Don't take His name in vain. Observe the Sabbath. Honor your parents. Don't kill. That's where my pro-life views come from. Don't kill. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Don't steal. Don't commit adultery. Don't covet. It didn't feel like I was reading these values for the first time. These aren't foreign values. They seem like foreign values in today's culture. Look at what they're teaching your kids in many schools across this country. The DEI sessions at your company, turn on the TV, go to the movie theater. But they're not foreign values to most of us. And so will I stand for those shared values that our country was founded on? You're darn right I will. That's my responsibility as the next president. To make faith and family and patriotism and hard work cool again in this country, actually. And not just for people of one faith. We live in a religiously pluralistic country. We want to bring back those values for people of many different faiths. But we've lost that common core in this country, that common core and foundation of values. The truth is, one of the core teachings of my faith is that we don't get, as someone who fears God, we don't get to choose who God works through. God chooses who God works through. And as I understood it, get further through that Old Testament, we get to the book of Isaiah. I read the same teaching. When God chose Cyrus, a king all the way in Persia, to lead the Jews back to the promised land. It's my faith that leads me to this journey, actually. I'm going to bring it back to just policy and the role of the presidency here. The role of the president is to swear an oath to the Constitution and to keep it. So people can speak their minds freely, can worship freely, can enjoy religious liberty that's been under assault in this country over the last 20 years. I think politicians in both parties have done a disastrous job in standing for that Constitution. I think right now, though, it's going to take a president who has two things. One is it's going to take an outsider, somebody with sharp elbows, a businessman, not a politician, coming in from the outside to actually shake up the existing system and gut it when necessary. I bring that, and let's have some real talk. Trump brought some of that too. But it also takes a president who has a deep understanding, first personally, of the law and the Constitution in this country. And those two things don't usually go together. Right, you'll have the academic law type over here. You'll have the business guy who can execute over here. But those two things don't usually go together. And yes, I believe God gives each of us our own unique gifts. But it is our job to use those gifts in the short time we're given. It is our duty to use those gifts to do what's right. That is what gives me, I believe, a moral duty to be in this race. I believe it is my fear of God and my belief in God that says, this is my duty. I believe this is what God put me here to do. And we don't choose who God works through. That's God's choice. But if it's God's will, we're going to do this. And I believe that it is going to take somebody with fresh legs from the next generation who isn't a product of that corrupt system, but still has the means and the fortitude to get this job done to actually revive our country. And that's why I'm in this. So thank you, sir. I appreciate that question and hope that addresses that for you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll go to the back, and then we'll come to you, sir. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah, please.
Oh, when you get rid of the ATF, is that, do we just convert that into a convenience store?
How about we convert it into just a hole in the ground? We got to commemorate that before we build something on top, because we got to remember all the wrong that was actually done. This is an agency that's fundamentally hostile to the Second Amendment. Not only is the administrative state, the existence of three-letter agencies, most of them are unconstitutional. This is an unconstitutional agency that's further engaging in an unconstitutional assault on the Second Amendment itself, the one amendment that protects all the others, which we sometimes forget. It's not about hunting and sport shooting. It's about all of the other amendments. That's what the Second Amendment's really about. It's about tyranny.
How are they arbitrarily?
How are they doing it? They're just making it up. The bump stock ban, you can go to pistol brace rules. It's all just made up from the hip. But we, the people, haven't held them accountable. So my view is any one of those agencies that's unconstitutionally engaging in that level of overreach, at a certain point in time, you can't reform it anymore. Once it becomes part of the culture of the organization, there's one answer: you shut it down. That's the answer with the ATF. So the background checks will move it to the U.S. Marshals. It's because they're not becoming challenged, yes, but then it becomes part of the culture. It's like a company or any organization develops its own culture. That then becomes part of the culture of that bureaucracy. That's the ATF. It's fundamentally hostile to the Second Amendment. That's become the culture. It's not one person. It's the culture of thousands of people working in that building. The same thing at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. I'll give you a less controversial one. It's hostile to nuclear energy in this country. There hasn't been a new nuclear power plant built for decades since the Nuclear Regulatory Commission was formed. That's the best known form of lasting energy production, and yet we're not competitive in the United States. So I've said I'm going to shut down the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The FBI has been fundamentally hostile to the Constitution. The failed Bureau of Investigation, I've said I'm going to shut it down. Now, this isn't just a slogan. We've got a clear plan for all of this. There's 35,000 employees at the FBI. 20,000 of them are back office bureaucrats at the J. Edgar Hoover building, of all things. That's what they call it. Tells you a lot, in Washington, D.C. We're going to send them packing to find honest work in the private sector. The 15,000 cops, the investigative agents on the front lines, will move them to the U.S. Marshals, which has been far more effective at fighting child sex trafficking rings, or even the fentanyl epidemic in this country, or to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, the U.S. Treasury, with the expertise to go after the future SBFs and the FTXs, the financial fraudsters of the world. So we will at once improve effectiveness while also addressing the rampant corruption. The Department of Education. I've said I would shut it down, not because I'm against education in this country, but because I am for education in this country, actually. $80 billion, that should be generally in the pockets of parents across this country who can choose where they send their kids to school. A small sliver of that, and this brings it full circle to your first question about shutting down the ATF. What happened in Perry, is familiar with what happened in Perry in the high school? It's unconscionable. I happened to be in Perry that morning. Met a mother and a father who picked up their daughter from their elementary school, brought her that morning, about an hour after it played out. I had a chance to talk to them, and the first thing he told me is, I know they're going to say, come take my gun. I'm not going to stand for that, even though I'm worried for my daughter's safety. I told him what I'm going to do. For a tiny fraction of that Department of Education, we are going to ensure the states have funding to put 3 armed security guards in every school across this country. That's how you protect our children. Something happening like it did in Perry, that's unacceptable in this country. 1 security guard per school wouldn't do it, but 3 would. We put more security in our banks and in our malls than we do to protect our most valuable national asset. So some people in the mainstream media will caricature these positions about the FBI or the ATF or about the U.S. Department of Education. I'm shutting down the FBI not because I don't care about the rule of law, but because I do care about the rule of law. I'm shutting down the Department of Education not because I don't care about education, but because I do care about education in this country. And it's going to take a president who is grounded deeply in principle and in the Constitution to be unshakable when they come for you. That is why I'm in this race. I don't see that amongst existing politicians. Donald Trump was the closest thing we had. They duped him, though. That's what happened. They told him, you can't fire these civil service employees because of so-called civil service protections. They told him, you can't shut down agencies because you need actual new laws to do it under certain circumstances. The agency I've told you, the president has the power to shut them down now under existing legal authority. They told him, you can't end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegals in this country because you need a constitutional amendment. Well, read the 14th Amendment. The opening words are clear. It does not apply to those who are here illegally, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, or the magic words. They told him you can't deport those people who are in this country illegally because we only have 6,000 ICE agents, Mr. President. And there are millions who are here illegally. Well, the current law allows the U.S. President and ICE to serve those warrants via local law enforcement. So it goes back to that president who, yes, is an outsider, can break things, but also knows and deeply understands the law. So we're not going to be duped by the people who actually come for us. He rolled over that log, and we saw what crawled out of that swamp. I'm bringing the pesticide, and that's what it's going to take to actually use the existing constitutional authority to shut it down when it comes to that 4th branch of government. And if there's one thing I get done as your next president, and I believe I am the best person suited in the United States of America to do this job, and it's my duty to get in there and do it, is to shut down that deep state, fix that, everything else from reviving this economy to a foreign policy that actually protects this country, that automatically follows. And that's my one commitment I will make to you and keep from the first day we get into office. I don't know if you all, anybody in this know who Javier Milei is in Argentina? You know, for those, I'm going to make him look like a moderate in my first 3 months. If I do that, I haven't done my job. So that's the answer. We're going to come to you, sir.
Wow, I get the mic. I've been independently researching the Great Reset. I've heard you mention it. I've seen videos you've talked about it. It's hard to find. I'm trying to explain these things to family members and so that they understand the gravity of what is happening.
I'll tell you something funny here.
Can you expound on that
Oh, yeah.
for the viewers, please?
Are we live streaming this right now? On what platforms? So it's funny. I learned this from somebody recently who, found that algorithmically how this works about a year ago. If you say the word the Great Reset, Google's algorithms automatically suppress it. It's interesting how that works. The words you're not supposed to say. So I was just wondering, we're literally live streaming this now. I'm sure YouTube automatically, the AI just tamped this down. Now I wonder what the AI does with a guy who's calling out the AI. Maybe it'll lose its mind. I don't know. But it's interesting, right? So what is the Great Reset? This term, have anybody heard terms like this before? Okay. So I'll define it, because I think some people in our movement, we use the word, but we don't have to define it. Let's level up. It refers to dissolving the boundaries, the dissolution of boundaries between the public sector and the private sector, so that the leaders in both may advance the global common good. It refers to the dissolving of boundaries between nations, so that their leaders may work together towards the global common good. It actually increasingly will refer to the dissolution of boundaries between the online world and the offline world, so that we may merge in achieving the global common good. That's what the metaverse is all about. That's the Great Reset. It says, hey, the leaders of these different institutions must work together across boundaries of nations. I'm trying to do my best Klaus Schwab impression I can. Across the business leaders and leaders in the public sector must work together. This is a man who preaches from the mountaintops of Davos. That's one vision. And the response to the Great Reset is the Great Uprising, which says hell no to that vision. That we, the citizens of this nation, will self-govern, and we are sovereign as citizens of the United States of America, not some global citizen fighting climate change nebulously somewhere, but the citizens of this nation doing what's right here at home. That's what we're leading right now, is that great uprising. That's the war in this country. It's the war between those who love the United States of America and our founding ideals, and a fringe minority who hates this country and what we stand for. Between the permanent state and the everyday citizen, between the Great Reset and the Great Uprising. How are we going to stand against it first? For what it's worth, sir, I've been doing this this has been my work for the last several years of my career. I've written several books about it. I wrote my first book, Woke Inc. I wrote my third book, Capitalist Punishment, all of which is about the misuse of your dollars in the ESG movement, your own retirement dollars, Iowa pension fund dollars, I can tell you, are being used, they're in BlackRock's hands, to vote for policies through the back door in corporate America that you would have never voted for through the front door at the ballot box, and which are hostile to your best financial interests. Exposing the CBDC, the rise of a central bank digital currency that they want to use to digitize your dollar to be able to wipe it out if you say or do something the government doesn't like. So what we're doing right now is, exposing that. I wrote the books, but then I started a company called Strive, my more recent company I founded, that competes directly against BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard, offering those similar kinds of investment products, but which do not vote for those toxic left-wing ideologies, but which vote for maximizing profit, which is exactly what I do think an investment manager is supposed to be doing for his clients. But you realize why these firms are doing it goes back to that deep state in the federal government that's causing them to do through the private sector what they couldn't do through the front door. So we will stop using our taxpayer money to fund institutions from the WHO to the UN that are hostile to our sovereignty in the United States of America. That's how we're going to put an end to it. Rescind the pro-ESG rules that came through the administrative state, the Department of Labor, the three-letter agencies. Shut those three-letter agencies down in the United States and the transnational versions of the same. Our own money is being used to fund interests that are hostile to our own sovereignty in the United States of America. And the job of a president is, first of all, to know it, to open your eyes, for these things not to just be words, but to deeply understand what's going on. But second, to act on those convictions. And I will, as your next president. So I've written 2 books about this, so I could go on all day about it. But that's the heart of what I'm going to do as your next president. It takes somebody, these aren't traditional Republican talking points, because it's not 1980 anymore. Right? We can't be a Republican Party that's reciting slogans from 1980 just about big government, when the real threats we face right now are a hybrid of big government and big business that together are doing what neither one could do alone. That's what's going with censorship in this country. It's not big tech censorship. It is government tech censorship. The government is using private tech companies to do through the back door what the government could not get done through the front door under the Constitution. And it's wrong and it's illegal. I've said that any time a government bureaucrat has pressured a private actor to do something that they couldn't do directly that's illegal, we're going to publish it and hold the lawbreakers accountable. Whether it's big tech censorship through the back door, whether it's pressuring banks not to lend to gun manufacturers or fossil fuel providers, or for that matter, even certain churches, Christian churches, that have been denied funding because they don't meet the social score of the ESG prong because they adopt a traditional view of marriage. No, that ends on my watch. It is illegal and unconstitutional behavior. And it takes a president who understands it to step up and actually fight it. Thank you for that, sir. I appreciate it. I'm being told we have time for at least one more question, one quick question. Thank you.
Your views are refreshing. One of the biggest things that I guess I have constantly thought is what, as it pertains to, the homeland, we talk so much about overseas and so on and so forth, but what are your policies as the next president as it pertains to our veterans and how you take care of them both?
Thank you.
While they're in the military, and especially when they're not.
Thank you, sir. Is anyone in this room a veteran now? By show of hands. Where did you serve, sir?
Currently serving National Guard.
Thank you for your service to this country. I appreciate you, sir. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
21.
Proud of you.
Thank you.
We have a 25% recruitment deficit in our own U.S. military right now. And part of the reason why, there's a lot of reasons why, but part of the reason why is that young people look to how we treat our veterans on the back end. And they say, well, if this is how you're going to treat your veterans on the back end, then why the heck am I going to put my life on the line for this country on the front end? A country that doesn't take care of its veterans isn't a country, and we're not taking care of our veterans right now. I mean, in such a deeper sense, a country that doesn't have borders isn't a country. And so in many ways, I think it's the existence of the United States that's on the line, and no less so in the question of how we take care of our veterans. So I am the only presidential candidate that's actually unveiled a comprehensive policy for taking care of our veterans. Not just lip service, but actual detail. And I'm confident we're going to be able to get this done because none of what I'm going to tell you is partisan. I don't believe it is. Not even close. First of all, we have close to 40 veterans per day. They say it's 22. It's not. It's close to 40 veterans per day committing suicide in the United States of America. That is unacceptable. Basic things we can do. 6-week decompression buffers. When a veteran comes back from active duty roles and combat roles, before just thrusting them back into civilian life, you have a 6-week paid decompression buffer. That brings down PTSD by 80%. We're not doing it today. We're going to do it on my watch. Give veterans the basic privacy restrictions to report their PTSD. Many of them aren't doing it right now. Basic restrictions that allow them, because otherwise they're being afraid of being tagged with the red flag law. Basics of being able to report your PTSD to actually get the care you need. You shouldn't have to drive 200 miles, especially in this weather, but period. It doesn't matter. Many veterans don't go to get the care that they actually need. You should be able to get community-based medical care paid for by the VA if that's the most convenient form of medical care available. Basic change to make. I think Schedule I drugs should be available as medical options to veterans through the VA. Ayahuasca, ketamine, psilocybin, to treat PTSD, for which there's good data, but it's certainly better than fentanyl or suicide, where they're turning today. It's unacceptable. That's considered spicy in the Republican Party. Well, it's what standing for truth and actually standing for our veterans actually means. Means also that I think that veterans deserve to be treated as the shareholders of the VA. I'm a guy's led companies before. In the world of public companies, you know who sets the pay of the CEO? Effectively, it's the shareholders. Who decides who's hired and fired? Well, if we should treat our veterans as the shareholders of the VA, the people at the top are going to be a lot more responsive to our veterans than they are now. And you know what? Nobody who serves as active duty military, nobody who's collecting their veterans benefits should have that compensation or those benefits subject to federal taxation. They will not be subject to federal taxation on my watch. So these are basic changes. I'm not going to just give you the lip service. We stand for our troops. No. Actions that speak louder than words. And that's how I'm going to do it as your commander-in-chief. The number one way, you also asked me about the people who do serve this country. How am I going to stand for them? Some of those apply. The active duty military compensation will not be subject to federal taxation on my watch. But the number one way I could respect America's sons and daughters who have stepped up to serve this country is to make sure that you're not fighting some war that does not advance our own interests. For the last 20 years, we've sent America's sons and daughters to go die in places like Iraq to Afghanistan. $7 trillion of our national debt is owed to those two wars. That won't happen on my watch. Yet the people, frankly, even in the Republican Party, are looking to repeat that in places like Ukraine, sending $200 billion of our own taxpayer money to Ukraine so some kleptocrat can buy a bigger house That's wrong, and I'm going to put an end to that. I think that we have to actually advance American interests. And that's not even good for Ukraine. Actually, if you could go into the details for the Ukrainian people, this war hasn't been any much better for them than it is for our own country. So I'm not going to repeat the same mistakes of Iraq 1.0 to turn into Iraq 2.0. Instead, what I will tell our sons and daughters is if you are going to be asked to put your life on the line, it will be to defend this nation. American citizens here in our homeland, which we're failing to do right now. So I will move our own troops to our own southern border. I'll do it on day one. I'll move them to the northern border too. That's what it means to protect this homeland. Defend against missile attacks, cyber and super EMP attacks that we're more vulnerable to than ever in this country. That's my moral duty to not only those who serve, but to the citizens of this country. You see, as a father, my moral obligation is to my family. As your next president, my sole moral duty is to you, the citizens of this country, not another one. That's moral clarity to me. It's been a long time since we've actually abided by that. Again, Donald Trump's the closest thing we got. But personnel is policy. The likes of John Bolton or Nikki Haley or Lindsey Graham, they're not going to come anywhere close to having actual foreign policy determining roles in my own administration. And I can tell you with clarity that none of them will be my vice president. Apparently, I'm the only person in this race who could tell you that. But that's what it takes to have a president who's actually going to see that through. America first, we use this word. I'm an America first conservative. What does that mean? It just means two basic things. We, the people, create a government that is accountable to us, not the other way around. That the people we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who run the government. And the moral duty they owe is to the citizens of this nation, not another one. That's not too much to ask. I think most people in this country agree with that. That's the heart of my presidency. Those two things will be true when I am in office on day one and I'm sworn in on January 20th, 2025. And that's why we're going to win this in a landslide, I think. It's my obligation to you. If you make me your nominee, you do this in 7 days on January 15th. Every one of your voices and votes is the equivalent of 1 million people. And I'm asking you, you guys are here tonight. You've taken the trouble to be here. That tells me something. I'm going to ask you to tell 10 people in this community what we talked about and bring them to. I'm genuinely asking you to do that from one patriot to another. And if you all do your part, I'm going to win this Iowa caucus. I think we're on track to shatter the polls. I think we're going to win this thing because most of our supporters have not been polled. Many of them are first-timers. If I win the Iowa caucus, I'm your next president. And if I'm your next president, we restore the founding ideals of this country that would make George Washington proud rather than rolling over in his grave as he is today. And we owe it to our founding fathers to actually make it so. And none of you asked about it, but I've gotten the question, and you guys have a decision to make, so I'm just going to give it to you anyway. You have a choice to make. There's two America First candidates in this race. That's Donald Trump and myself. I'm in this to take our America First agenda to the next level. And I'm going to ask you to open your eyes for a second. If you think they're going to let this man get anywhere near that White House again, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes. These people have made clear, the system has made clear, it's disgusting and I've stood against it at every step of the way. I've respected Donald Trump and his legacy more than everybody else in this race because it's the right thing to do. But we owe it to this country to open our eyes and see these people, they will stop at nothing. And at this point, I mean nothing, to keep this man away from the White House. They want to narrow this down. This is the plot. Let's just see it. They want to narrow this down to a two-horse race. Take Trump out of contention, likely sometime in the spring. Trump versus a puppet who they can control, and trot in the puppet. That's the game. It's hiding in plain sight. And I want you to ask yourself, you're going to look back a year from now and say, oh, we were shocked that that happened. Or are we going to say that was obvious, and why the heck didn't we see it coming? We cannot fall for the trap they have laid. They are selling us the rope right now that they will use to hang us tomorrow. And our America First agenda, it's bigger than one man. It doesn't belong to Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the citizens of this country. We love the man because he got this fight started, but it is now our job to finish it. That's our obligation to this country. Our America First movement did not begin in 2016. It began in 1776. And we owe it to this country to make sure we have another 250 years and then some left in this American journey. So I'm asking you to do the right thing, even if it's different than what you thought a little bit maybe 3 or 6 months ago. Do the right thing for this country. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I promise you it's not out of convenience with a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old living the life that my parents never would have imagined when they came to this country 40 years ago with no money, when my dad was facing layoffs at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. He had to go to night school to keep his job. I went to law school for the first time myself in 6th grade. Sat in the back of the law school classrooms watching him to be able to do that, to keep his job, to be able to continue to put food on the dinner table. This country has given us more than we could have ever imagined. This is out of our sense of duty to that country to pass it on to our kids and their generation. What's the point of giving them a bunch of green pieces of paper? We put almost $30 million already of our family's hard-earned money into this campaign because I don't want to be somebody else's pawn. I don't want to be serving some master. Politicians have become slaves to their donors. I told you I'd rather lose than do that. But we're making that sacrifice because I think it is required right now, not later, not in 2028, not in 2032, right now to save this country. If our kids are in high school, my kids are a little younger than yours, but the next 5-10 years, if we don't get this right, we don't have a country left. If the interest payments on our national debt are the largest line item on our federal budget, we don't have a country left. That's about 5 years from now. So we don't have the luxury of time. We should not and we must not be the generation that squandered what our founding fathers gave us. We're skating on thin ice right now. I think there's a real risk that happens this year in this country. You got the future of America First standing right here. I'm asking you to do the right thing. I'm asking for your vote on January 15th, and I'm asking you to spread this message to the people who love this country too, but need to skate to where the puck is going. Open our eyes and not fall into the trap that's been laid for us. And if we do, if we get this right, then we don't have to anymore be this nation in decline anymore. We don't have to be at the end of the ancient Roman Empire. I think if George Washington were in this room right now, you know what he would say? He would say that we as a nation are still a little young, actually. Going through our own version of our adolescence. Figuring out who we're going to be when we grow up. And when you view it that way, it makes sense again. You go through your adolescence. You go through that identity crisis. You lose your way, as we have as a country. But we are stronger for it when we get to our adulthood on the other side. So no, I don't think we have to be that nation in decline. I think we still can be a nation in our ascent. I'm not going to be the guy who walks in here and tells you guys, it's morning in America right now. I love Ronald Reagan, but even he wouldn't tell you that today. Because it's not true. It's not morning in America right now, but it can be. I'm not going to tell you as young people that the American dream is alive and well. I can't tell you that in good conscience. It is alive and hanging on for life support. But it can be. So if you all do your part, about 7 days, that's what I'm asking you for. If you all do your part, I promise you, my family and I, my wife Apurva and I, we will do ours to make sure, not in some fake politician way, but in a true way, to make sure that our country's best days are actually still ahead of us. To make sure we will tell our kids and mean it that this is still the country where no matter who you are or where your parents came from or what your skin color is, that you'll get ahead in this country with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication, and that you know what? You are free to speak your mind at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what we are running to. And with your help, that is what we will revive to save this great country. Thank you. God bless you and your families, and may God bless our United States of America. Thank you. Take a few pictures. Hunter, we got a couple minutes? And tell people about the cards. I appreciate it. I forgot to mention that. Thank you, man.
You run as independent.
I'm going to run as a Republican and win. Because running as an independent, we're not going to, you do that to move the terms of conversation. I'm not in this to move the terms of conversation. We're not making the sacrifice to make a point. We're doing it to make a country. With your help, I win the Iowa caucus, I'm going to be president. My heart of heart, I could be wrong. I'm not God. None of us is in this room. But I believe we're going to win the Iowa caucus. I think we're going to have a major surprise on January 15th, and we'll win the general in a landslide for the same reason, because it's not just the traditional Republicans. There's America First movement that's bigger than just that. You do your part, I'm going to do mine. And I think our country's best days will be ahead. Counting on you, man.
Slight clarification. You were talking about the Ten Commandments earlier.
Yeah.
I just feel there was, in Hebrew, the original language of the Bible, the sixth one that you said, do not kill. There was two words that could potentially be the word kill. It's actually, there's kill and murder. And the correct translation is actually murder.
That's right.
Because kill is...
Don't murder is the correct. I was speaking colloquially. I appreciate that.
But I wanted to make sure everyone...
And that's why we stand for life. That's where my pro-life views come from. And I'll tell you one thing. They'll tell you by the time the general election comes around, I'll see you guys again. You make me your nominee, I'll come back before the general election. Don't worry. And I'll tell you this in the general election, why we're not going to let abortion be the losing issue. Missing ingredient here is sexual responsibility for men. As a man, I favor laws that say, you know what? If a woman brings a child to term, she should be able to make any man who's confirmed by a genetic paternity test to be the father financially responsible for both her and the son, or the daughter and the kid. That automatically says now we're in this not as men versus women. It's not about men's rights versus women's rights. Now it's about human rights. That's what it stands for. But thank you, because that is not just killing, that is murder.
Murder is...
Yeah. Thank you.
Innocent life is...
Thank you. This is our kind of room. I appreciate that. We're here I think we're here because we care about this country. I'm not going to do this alone. Even after you elect me as your president, I'm not letting you off the hook. Everyone has our role to play, from pastor to parent to teacher to coach. But I'm going to play mine, and I'm going to ask you to play yours. And in the next 7 days, on January 15th, we have a pretty big step that we're going to have to take together. So thank you guys. I'm going to hand it to my friend Hunter. We'll tell you about that. Thanks a lot. We can stay for a few pictures before probably what is going to be a 4.5-hour drive to Des Moines tonight. So thank you guys.
All right, thanks, Vivek. Just 1 week to go, guys, until we shock the world. In order to do so, though, we need to show up. So please get with our team. I really truly feel like call myself here with caucus cards. Get involved. Become a precinct captain. But thank you guys all for being here. So
My wife, we were caucus captains
Thank
for
you.
another candidate, and we had a change of heart.
Caucus captains for
For another candidate, we had a change of heart.
Thank you. We're going to do it we're doing it for the country. Right? That's what we owe it to. We owe it to George Washington. I think it's a 1776 moment. The beauty of that is, what a special time that would have been to be alive in the spring of 1776. That's what we live in today. So if we see it that way, it doesn't have to be that they had every reason for doom and gloom too. But to see what lies on the other side of that. Let's see it that way. And nothing's going to stop us. Yeah.
There's some wild rebels.
They were. That's us.
Yeah, it
To
is.
revive that. Thank you. That means a lot to me. If you tell our people.
It's the truth. We were caucus captains for somebody else, and we
Thank you.
changed.
Hey, Hunter, they switched from another campaign to ours for caucus captains. I want to make sure. Let's talk about George Washington.
Yeah.
are kind of
I
person.
really do mean that.
I appreciate that. We take that responsibility, my man.
Would you take a picture?
Yeah, let's take a picture with us. Come on over. Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Well, I gotta navigate to my,
Oh, no,
now on camera,
Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot to me, guys.
Right here? Perfect.
We're going to do this with your help.
Thank you so much.
We're going to do this. Thank you. Thank you. How old are you, brother?
17.
17. When do you turn 18?
August.
You can vote in the caucus. You know it. You bring a bunch of people out with you. Thank you. You bring a lot of those youngsters with you. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me, brother.
Can I get those two together?
Hey, yeah, absolutely. Come on in, brother. How old are you, too? 17 as well?
I'm 16.
Right here, quickly.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Old man tech, I guess. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Just a old guy trying to make sure I don't raise a couple liberals. So
Keep up the
they
good
need
work.
to hear you,
I appreciate that. What's your name?
Jesse.
Yes. You done the caucus before?
We're actually South Dakota.
Okay. Well,
Came
thank
to
you for
see
being
you,
here.
so
If
I
you
wanted-
volunteer for
I wanted
us,
them to.
I appreciate that.
see you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Okay, come on in, guys. Come on in. Thank you for being here, guys.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Angela.
Angela. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
What's your name?
David,
David. I appreciate it.
pleased to meet you.
Thank you for being here. Have you done the caucus before?
Yes.
I trust you. Well, thank you for bringing your whole family. Is this your whole family? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have to turn this one to the side. Look at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
it.
much.
We'd be honored to have your support at the caucus.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Good to see you, man. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'd love your support of the caucus. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's good to see you, brother. Thank you for serving this country.
Absolutely.
It means a lot to me, man. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here.
Group's good.
Yeah. Have you guys done the caucus before?
Oh, yes, sir, I have.
You have? Well, bring these guys out with you. You've done it before?
No, I'm
We're going to ask you to do it this time, and
I will.
it means a lot. Okay? Take care. Thanks.
oh,
What's your name, sir?
Brent
Brent.
Peterson.
It's good to see you, Brent.
Why is your logo like an Iowa State logo on your internet?
Is it?
Yeah. It's the Iowa State colors, so on a marquee.
Eye of the beholders. I like that. That's
well,
good.
The Iowa people hate that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't really see that. Can you share that feedback with our team? It was certainly unintentional. He says,
Iowa State band, because it's in the, just like this, in the colors.
thank you. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Sign it for me?
Yes, absolutely. I'll sign this for you, and actually,
I'll fill that
you sign another one. Yeah, I'll sign this one for you, and you sign another one for us. How's that?
Perfect.
Thank you. How old are you?
19.
You can do this, man. Bring your generation out.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you. Caroline?
Yep, sorry. All right.
Thank you. Bring a lot of people to that caucus and come yourself. I will. Thank you, man. It's good to see you, sir.
Hello again. Yeah, I was here last time that
Amazing.
you were in town.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
I brought a couple. I brought a trumper with me. I hope it changes mind.
I hope so too. Thank you. With your help.
Safe travels.
And if you spread the message, I appreciate that. Thank you. Hey. It's good to see you, man. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to see you. Have you done the caucus before?
No, I have not.
You haven't? We require you to come out this time. Come on, man.
All right.
Thank you. It's a must.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your support. Every
Have a
one of
safe
you
trip.
makes a big difference. You're kind of great question.
See you on Tim on Monday, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it takes our path to get there. Thank you. Hey. It's good to see you, man.
As well.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, my man. You done the caucus before?
I haven't, but I am this year.
Awesome. Spread the message. Bring a bunch
Yeah,
out. That's how we're going to do it.
Makes a big
Thank you guys for coming back. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Remind me your name?
Thank you, Vladdy.
Vladdy. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
the best. Thank you.
I'm finished.
Thank you again. I appreciate you coming. Thank you, my man.
to listen to her.
Yeah, I will appreciate that.
Get some time to spend with
I
her.
would welcome
She'll
that.
give you a different perspective.
I know that's what we always want.
I think you need people from
Differing
first-time
perspectives.